Good morning. I'm John Brunt, and I'm a senior research engineer for Sensay. Here at Sensay, we create AI powered digital replicas of humans to preserve and share individual and organizational knowledge, turning it into scalable, sustainable wisdom. Today, I want to talk to you about the latest that's come out from DeepSeek. You probably have heard of DeepSeek. They made a lot of waves earlier in the year when the R1 reasoning model came out. I had originally wanted to do a video or several videos close to when R1 came out, but other things came up. So I'm going to talk a little bit more today about the background of DeepSeek, R1, what just came out that I want to talk about, and probably where we're headed from here. So DeepSeek is a Chinese technology company. Over about the last year, several white papers have emerged on archives, notably one about mathematical reasoning. Then they released their V2 and their V3 at the end of last year. These were foundation models, models trained on a vast corpus of data for the internet, general purpose models. A few weeks after they released V3, they released R1, which is the reasoning model that drew so much attention. So recently, they have just released V3 0324 2 days ago on March 24th. To back up a little bit, what's made DeepSeek so interesting is that they've been able to do a lot more with a lot less because of embargoes and other problems that they have with importing chips. They have been able very rapidly to compensate for that by creating machine learning architectures and LLM architectures that rely on a lot less compute, so you need less hardware, both at training and at inference. And they've been very successful at this in a very short period of time. So we first really saw that when R1 came out. And R1 was created by taking their original V3 model, that base model, and they used reinforcement learning to turn it into a reasoning model. Now we're seeing an updated version, this V3 0324, of that base model that very quietly dropped on Hugging Face here 2 days ago. No white paper, no social media that I'm aware of. It just appeared. And originally, here in the files, this README was empty. They've since added a little bit of benchmarking. But in general, it came out quietly. It didn't grab the immediate attention that the R1 model did, but I think this is as big of a deal or bigger of a deal than R1, and this is why. They dropped V3 a few weeks before R1 came out. There's already been talk that R2 is coming. I think within a few weeks to at most maybe a month or two, we'll see R2, their next reasoning model, following this that was trained on this V3. It's the latest update, the 0324. So going back to what V3 originally brought us, how they were able to develop this architecture that used so much less compute. They did a lot of different things. First thing they did, it's a large model. It's got over 600 billion parameters, but it's a mixture of experts like we've talked about in the past. So even though it's got 600 billion plus parameters, it only activates about 37 billion parameters depending on the prompt. So it's able to use a lot less compute at inference, and in doing so, it's able to have much lower latency, faster tokens per second. It also has used something called multi-head latent attention that was pioneered by DeepSeek. This allows it to have more context over a large context window, over a large chat history, with a large input for a single prompt, whatever that may be. And also something they call multi-token prediction. So instead of predicting a single token, it's able to predict multiple tokens at the same time. What this has allowed it to do is increase output speed by about 80%. So with this technology that came out with V3, with this architecture, the multi head attention, the multi-token prediction, mixture of experts. They didn't invent mixture of experts. That we've seen that before with things like Mistral's 56 billion parameter mixture of experts, but they took it to a whole new level, and then they did the reinforcement learning to bring us R1. So with this new model, a lot of things stand out. One of the big things, it's MIT. So you can take this model, you can use it commercially with total freedom. MIT license being one of the most permissive licenses that there is. Also, and again, these are cherry picked in general, the benchmarks that they release, any model as they come out, they tend to cherry pick a lot of the benchmarks, but you see very high performance here in this dark blue with the slashes is the V3 0324, and they're comparing it to V3, comparing it to the latest Quinn model, comparing it to GPT 4.5, Claude 3.5, and you can see in a wide variety of benchmarks, math, high-level thinking, general benchmarks, coding, they're getting close to matching or even exceeding GPT 4.5, Claude 3.5. So the big thing about this is it's a very powerful model. It's open source. And the last thing, and maybe the biggest thing, people are running this in a 4-bit quantized version. So again, a version where you maintain almost all of the power, but you're using less bits for the model weights, so you're able to run it on less hardware. People are running this on the Mac Studio, Apple's Mac Studio with the M3 Ultra. So that is a 32-core CPU, an 80-core GPU, and I would assume they're running this on the 512 gigabyte version. They're getting about 20 tokens per second. I do not have access to that sort of hardware. I did set it up on my rack of GPUs that I have that I run locally. It ran quite well on 4 A100 GPUs. And the fact that you can run it on consumer hardware, it's a little bit of a stretch to call that Mac Studio with the M3 Ultra common consumer hardware, because it's almost $10,000 in the specs that I just gave to you if you buy it in the US. But the fact that you can run it on that off the top of my head is about 200 watts of power that it pulls. For example, my GPUs, my rack that I use pulls several kilowatts. So you have much greater efficiency being able to run it on small hardware like that, consumer hardware, in terms of power, in terms of cost, in terms of space. Really notable thing about that model, and I think when we see R2 come out, we're going to see a lot more things that we'll have to talk about. I'm certainly going to put a video out about that. I've talked about a lot of things today, so I'm not going to talk about much more, but again, this latest version of DeepSeek's V3 coming out, the ability to run it on consumer hardware, the great benchmarks that it's got, the fact that they have made it MIT, the license, it's open weights here. You can see these safe tensors. Those are the model weights. It's quite a large model. I didn't mention this yet, but it's about 685 gigabytes. If you run it on 4 bits, that reduces it to about 350 gigabytes. And it's got 635 or 650 billion parameters. I'm not positive about those numbers, but it's well in the range of 650 gigabytes and 650 billion parameters. So it's not a small model, but again, you're able to run it on consumer hardware. Any case, you're able to run it with much more efficiency than a traditional model of that size. I encourage you to go out and play with this. They don't say it explicitly, but if you go to their site, you can run the inference for free on their GUI. You can download it here at Hugging Face if you want to experiment with it locally. Really good model. The last thing I'll note, it's notably, the other DeepSeek models had a very conversational tone to them. This one, if you would, is very cold and quite professional. I'm sure this was intentional by them, but it's something I've noticed, something I've seen some people mention in some early reviews of this. Again, it's only been out 2 days. I'll leave it at that. Thanks for joining me today. Please like and subscribe for the latest AI updates. Again, I'm John Brunt from Sensay. Create your personal replica today at sensay.io. Until the next time.